This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with the Raw Life Health Show, and I've been showing all these videos about people who have been healed from cancer and doctors, how to get healed from cancer. There's just so many different illnesses out there today. But this next person I'm going to have on the show this one's personal for me. This lady suffered from what I suffered from, inflammatory bowel disease. And we interviewed her, and she's going to be talking today about healing from inflammatory bowel disease. And she has an amazing book that I want everyone that knows somebody suffering from inflammatory bowel disease, or if you're suffering from yourself, you have to get this book. You can either get it from her website, but I also have it on my website, rawlife.com. This lady, Jini, she knows her stuff. I think there's several different ways and situations. You have to handle each situation independently based on what's going on. There's several different ways I have seen to heal inflammatory bowel disease, but the most common way and the first thing I'd recommend people do is get Jini's book and follow her program. And I'm very sure you'll see a tremendous improvement. She also has other great books on her website and information and videos. So get to her website. I'll post it below the video right now. Now, I wrote a book called about healing inflammatory bowel disease, but it's out of print. And before I reprint it, I'm making some updates to it. And so it's not out there. So in the meantime, I am recommending everyone get Jini's book, because that is one book I recommend people have. Even if you get my book, get her book as well. It's that good and that important for people with inflammatory bowel disease. I'm also working on a website about this. And one of the things I do is, if you're suffering from inflammatory bowel disease, it's on my heart to help you or to talk to you. So if you want to contact me, you can go ahead and I'll work with you on some ideas on how to get better. But first, I recommend you get Jini's book and you try those things out, and then we can talk a little bit more. Read her book. It's amazing. Here's the interview right now with Jini.
My name is Jini Patel Thompson. My website is listentoyourgut.com, and I am an expert on natural healing for digestive diseases. My books are sold in over 40 different countries worldwide. I've had newspaper and magazine articles published in the UK, the US, Australia. I also formulate specific healthcare products for the inflammatory bowel disease market. These are products that I needed in my own healing journey that weren't available, so I had to go into production for them. So that's in a nutshell what I do. And where that came from was I healed myself of widespread Crohn's disease. I had it small intestine, large intestine, and at the point I left the medical treatment protocols, they suspected it had spread to my stomach as well. So I had a pretty bad case of it, and the doctors told me I'd be in and out of the hospital the rest of my life. I would never be able to work. I'd never be able to have kids. And I went, that doesn't really appeal to me. No, thanks. So I left the medical treatment protocols and I went searching. And it took me 7 years to figure out what worked. And then I threw it out there. People kept asking me, well, how can you be so healthy? So I put it in an ebook form and I threw it out there to about 200 people. And I said, just give me your feedback, because I'm not going to bother putting this into a book if it's something that only worked for me. So based on the feedback, that became my first book, which is also called Listen to Your Gut. And so I just sort of, everything's grown from there. The protocols have improved because now I have about 30,000 readers and I get a lot of feedback. So we've been able to improve a lot of the protocols, make them more powerful so they take a shorter amount of time, that type of thing. So that's basically where I've come from.
Well, prior to you getting diagnosed with the Crohn's, how was your lifestyle and your diet up to that point?
Oh, well, I was diagnosed at 16. So in utero, I was malnourished. In childhood, my mom knew nothing about nutrition, okay? So we would have processed meats, processed cheeses, tons of sugar. I mean, basically your standard American diet with junk food and all that crap all the time, that's what I ate. So that was where I came from right up until diagnosis.
Now, being diagnosed at 16, you were still under the care of your parents to make your medical decisions for you. Did what they wanted to do and you felt was right to do go along with each other?
Yeah, because see, at that point, I come from an entire family of medical doctors and pharmacists. Like, we had not even, none of us had heard of alternative health. I thought alternative health was for, people who lived in the third world who couldn't afford the good stuff. So, of course, my dad goes out, he gets me the top Crohn's colitis doctor in Canada. The guy heads up a national research team. I go full in, full confidence. Yeah, I'm going to be handled. And it was just every year I got sicker and sicker and sicker. So I was totally in line with that. And then when I decided this is not working, I need to go and find what works. By that time I was 20, coming up to 20. So, and then I also left Canada and I went to Japan when I was 21. So I was out of the country for a lot of my experimentation anyway. And I was trying stuff. I go to a Zen monastery in Japan for 6 months and I tried teas from the Philippines. And then I went to Europe and I was trying everything that was there. I was based in the UK. And so a lot of my experimentation was on my own anyway. But my parents had seen actually the medical system doesn't work. They knew that because my brother as well had been diagnosed with Crohn's. And he'd already gone the surgery route and the whole bit. So they were fully cognizant that what the medical world has to offer for these diseases, just doesn't work in the long term, at least.
Well, so what would you recommend? Because I deal with a lot of people that contact me. They've been diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, like me, and most likely you. Maybe not because your brother had it, but most people that get diagnosed never even heard of this until they get diagnosed. So they're totally lost already. And doctors, at least in the United States, say there's no connection between our diet and our health, or our diet and inflammatory bowel disease. You and I know different. So where do you start off when somebody contacts you through your great website or through the phone and say, I've been diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, or ulcerative colitis, or one of the other many inflammatory issues of the bowel? What do you first tell them, and share with us how you can help people?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, there's what the natural protocols are about. And on the second hand, there's where the person's at in their own healing journey. Because some people, maybe they come from a holistic background, they want to go full into the holistic healing and they have no reservations. And they're, of course, your ideal person because they're ready to go, they're fully committed, and they'll do whatever it takes. But then you get people who they're either coming in with a lot of fear, or they've never done anything other than the medical system, so they don't have a lot of confidence in the alternative methods. So the way I've arranged things in my books is that people can do whatever they're ready for. So if they're ready to do the whole program, you're going to wean off your drugs and you're going to get the best results and your healing's going to happen the fastest. But for a lot of people, they need to stay on their drugs for a while because they're too scared and they just don't have the fluency with any kind of natural protocol. So for them, what they'll do is they'll maybe take something, like maybe their worst symptom is diarrhea. Okay, like I get people, they're having 20 to 40 bowel movements a day, right? That's hell. You have no life. So they'll take that diarrhea, and in my Listen to Your Gut book, I've arranged things according to symptoms. So they'll look up the symptom profile for diarrhea and they'll start implementing it. Now look, I'm getting good results. My diarrhea is calming down. Now now I'm down to 3 bowel movements a day. This is awesome. That then gives them the confidence to go through the rest of the protocol. So, but for someone who's coming in with Crohn's or colitis or diverticulitis, and on the homepage of listentoyourgut.com, I've put all the information on there. I've said it's an 8-step process. Here's what it is. If you have a severe form of the disease, okay, so you are to the point where you can't work properly or you've got intestinal bleeding, then step 1 is you have to rest the bowel. Because at that point, your intestines are so hypersensitive, they're so inflamed. There's not a lot you can do that is not going to trigger a flare because they're so hypersensitive. So step 1 is you rest the bowel. And the easiest way to do that is through what's something called an elemental, which is a liquid pre-digested diet. So it requires very little digestion. Within 20 minutes, it's into your bloodstream. So your whole digestive process gets a rest, gets to calm down, gets to, downregulate all of the crazy stuff that's happening. Number 2, you got to get rid of the pathogens, okay? Bad bacteria, yeast, fungus, viruses. You got to get rid of that stuff because all of that stuff is what's causing the ongoing infection and inflammation in your gut. Now, people say, Crohn's and colitis. To answer your second question about hope and whatever, I I think you have to get to a place where you either know that holistic healing works, so you're already oriented that way, because you know that holistic healing addresses the root cause. We're not, and the way I divide things up in my book, I have, okay, to get to the root cause of diarrhea is going to take some time. So in the meantime, here's what you take for the symptom. But this is not a healing. This is like you taking Imodium as a crutch to just slow down the diarrhea, and to really know that distinction. So while you take this natural substance that alleviates your diarrhea and reduces your bowel movements, you got to be doing this that's healing the root cause of your diarrhea. But this is going to take longer. So let's just get you some relief. And because I've been through that myself, I have an awareness of that. It's if you tell someone, okay, well, I'll heal you, but you're going to be sick as a dog, laid out in bed for the next 2 months, how many people are going to be able to go through with that? You know, and people have children. They can't be laid out for that amount of time. So that's sort of the balancing act that we go through. But the image that I give to people is, here's your healing. Healing is not this flat linear line that just goes up straight, and there's no down bits, or there's no anything. It's more like a spiral. Okay, so but it spirals up. So even though it's not straight and you don't see this continual improvement, as you know, when you get a Herxheimer reaction, okay, so you're taking something that causes a die-off of the pathogens, all right? Candida albicans releases 69 different toxins as it dies. Of course, you're going to feel sicker. So you're not actually going down, even though it feels like you're going down, okay? So you're going to spiral. It's going to feel like, oh, not so good of a pain. Oh, but I'm coming back up. And look, now I'm much healthier than I was here when I started. And that's, I think, what provides people with the motivation to keep going.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.